Narinda Kaur.
Yeah.
You posted a picture of her vagina on the internet.
Yeah. It's racism. And I went, it's not racism. You can't have an opinion because you're a white privileged male. And I went, that's racism. Sadiq Khan he's a liar. You know, this whole idea of ULEZ, we've made the sky all clear, and if we cover London in cycle lanes, I'll feel better about myself while I drive around a 300 grand armour-plated Range Rover. He doesn't suffer the consequences of his own stupid fucking ideology, does he? I think he's a divisive, horrible, Britain-hating cunt.
We won't go down the David Lammy route, but what a piece of shit.
That man
is racist.
He's a monstrous racist. They keep going diversity is our strength, but it isn't. Unity is our strength. I don't mind if people think I'm a vile human being. I'm trying not to be.
Repulsive is what you said.
Repulsive, sorry.
We need to be shifting direction here because the country's fucked.
I don't give a shit about the downsides.
Me neither.
Fuck that.
And fuck them.
Yeah, fuck them. It's not British. We don't want it. Fuck off. I can still remember my first death threat, which was, I'm going to unload a shotgun into this fucker's face. It's the old adage, I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. I'm not going to live on my knees.
I want to say a quick thank you to our sponsors, 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐢. I use their products every single day, and now I finally get to work with them. I use their products for anti-inflammatory, reduced anxiety, better sleep, and mental clarity. I'm going to put a link to their website in the description, along with a 10% discount code for you to take advantage of. Go and have a look at their website, see if there's anything in there for you. I hope you enjoy this week's episode, and good health.
Lawrence, how's the devil are you?
Devil am I? I'm all right, thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I want to get straight into this kind of establishment grip that you're in. I want to talk about the deep state attack, your arrests, your lawsuits, your threats to life, and your life. It's been controversial. And the fascinating thing for me is you weren't born in a working class, rough and ready environment, but yet you champion and you fight for those people. And for me, I can only applaud that because you never needed to do it. So let's go back to the beginning, because if you correct me if I'm wrong, you started your activism around 2019.
Yeah, 2018, 2019. But it actually, if I think about it now, it was getting bad long before. I just wasn't noticing it.
Okay, so let's go back to your upbringing. So I know that you was born in Leeds. You were there for a few years. You went to Harrow boarding school, one of the top boarding schools in the country. I believe you was expelled from there, got into acting. You was a decent shagger. You see, I've done my due diligence on you, Lawrence. So talk to me about life, the journey before you thought, actually, I don't like the way the world or the country's going. Life before politics.
I was born, like you say, in Leeds. My dad was a super successful actor, and he did a movie. I think it was called Performance in 1969. I think was when he did it, and he just, as often happens with showbiz people, something just clicked, and he went, "All right, I'm done with this."
James Fox,
and he became a missionary, and he tried to give away all his worldly possessions, and all that stuff. And he's quite funny when you talk to him about it. He had everything, he had the huge house, the gardeners, the butlers, the housekeepers, all of it. And he gave it all up and went to live in someone's spare room in Leeds. And he met my mum, who was a nurse in the health service at the time. And we did live what would be described as not a posh existence when we were little. But then when he tried to give all his worldly goods away, the guy who he gave it to distribute amongst the poor gave it back to him when he'd had a few kids. And then he thought, right, I'll go back into acting again. So he went and bought a nice house in Wimbledon Village, and we all went back to Wimbledon. But he was saying from quite early doors, my dad, that the world was really fucked, and that political correctness and, postmodernism and all that stuff was really going to ruin our lives. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Went to drama school, little smatterings of people talking about, how it was really hard being black in this world and all of that. And I was like, yeah, I'm sure it is in some ways hard being, I didn't care at all about the politics in any way. And then I started working, and then I did this TV show called Lewis for years and years and years, and I was working with the same people all the time. And you know what it's like if you work with the same group of people, you become a family, and, you know, new ideas don't creep into quite solid groups. So then when I finished that, I went on to this Netflix show, and I was hired in the room, which is quite rare, you know, especially with big budget stuff. Usually you have to kind of wait to hear, but they were like, yeah, you're perfect. And I was playing a Mancunian, coke dealing, gay yoga teacher. So I thought,
I'll have some of that.
this is some good casting. And then I didn't hear back from them for a couple of weeks, and they said, I spoke to my agent and said, what's going on? She went, well, there's a diversity problem. And I'm like, a what problem? And she went, diversity. And I was like, what does that mean? She says, well, one of you's got to be black. And I was like, why? And she said, well, that's just the way it is nowadays. And I went, well, that's a stupid idea. What, so you're going to hire someone just because they're black? How will they feel if they get the job? They won't feel that they got the job because they were great at their audition, then feel like they got the job because they were black. Anyway, turned out that I got the job too, and then my sidekick, or, you know, my opposite character was a black girl, a mixed race girl actually, who I worked with before, and she came up to me on the first day and said, I only got this job because of you, because you're white. And I was like, oh, that's a nice start to the gig, isn't it, babe? Nice to see you too. And then it proceeded to be a job of loads of mixed race people on 25 grand a week complaining about racism. And I was sat there going, you're on 25 grand a week. That's not racism. That's privilege. The thing that you keep complaining that I have, you've got a lot of too. So, and can we not talk about skin colour because you can't change it? So it's not the right, you know, there's nothing you can do about it. And anyway, it got worse and worse and worse. And I just started, I got so annoyed with it, I wrote a song about it. I wrote this song about it, which was a good song, and it still got picked up in various places. Anyway, it got me invited up to live lounge it on BBC. So I went on to BBC and live lounged it, and then I went to, the next day they said, do you want to go and do Question Time? And I was like, oh, fuck yeah, I do. Yes, I really do. And I want to say it, because no one said it, and it's pissing everybody off. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say everything. And I went on Question Time, and weirdly, all the shit I said on Question Time is the stuff that nowadays people are horrified by, but it was like going on about gangs and all that sort of stuff I was talking about, but that's all right over the head. But the minute I mentioned the sacred Meghan Markle and how she may have been disliked by the British population because she was a spoilt little hag, rather than because she was brown. I mean, I didn't even think of Meghan Markle as brown. I thought she looked a bit like, you know, any Italian actress you've ever seen in the world. I didn't think of her as mixed race in any way at all.
What was it that you actually said that caused so much outrage and backlash?
I said I was pretty sympathetic to them because I said the media were being hard on them, which I thought, but I didn't think it was to do with race.
To Harry and Meghan? Okay.
And then this woman in the audience who was a BBC plant, it turned out in the end, and she was a professor of like women's study at 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞 Ladies College or something, you know. And she went, let's call it what it is. It's racism. And I went, it's not racism. And then she went, you can't have an opinion because you're a white privileged male. And I went, that's racism. That's racism. What you're doing is racism. And then I banged my head against the table a few times and decided to let rip a bit on it. And got back to the hotel, had a few gins with Fiona Bruce, who was sort of lying there on the sofa looking like exactly like you'd imagine Fiona Bruce when the cameras aren't rolling on her. Sort of like some sort of slightly aging lioness. And she then had a few gins and went to bed, woke up next morning. My phone was very hot and exploding with like, have you seen what's happened? You know, and it was one of those moments where you suddenly become very famous really quickly. And so I got on the train and I was coming back to London and I was getting off the train and people coming up to me and going, fucking good on you, mate. Yeah, fucking right. It needed to be said. Good. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then the Actors Union decided that they called for me to be denounced. I was a bit like, that's a bit hard. All I'm doing is saying what Martin Luther King was saying. It's like, you can't change colour of your skin. Don't make a big issue of it. So they called for me to be denounced. My acting agent sort of tried to stick with me for a while. And then a few people called, Sainsbury's did a campaign when they said, when they were saying, they were talking about Black History Month. Yeah. And I'd already seen the Morgan Freeman clip on Black History Month, which always makes me giggle, where he goes, why should my history be reduced to a month? Do you want Jewish History Month? And he said it's American history. And I've very much been of that colourblind nature, which the woke people don't like at all when you say you're colourblind. And so Sainsbury's said that they were going to provide some safe spaces for their employees during Black History Month.
They're black employees?
Yeah. And I was like, why are they in danger? And then I said it was protest segregationist and maybe you should give them a fountain as well where they can have it of their own. And then a few more famous people started calling me a racist. So I thought, I'll try the Douglas Murray game and just call them all paedophiles.
In retaliation?
Yeah, I just said, one of these women actually who was an actress called Nicola Thorpe, she tweeted, anyone who hires Laurence Fox does so in the knowledge he's unashamedly, unapologetically and unequivocally racist. So I responded to her saying, anyone who hires Nicola Thorpe does so in the knowledge she's unashamedly, unapologetically and unequivocally a paedophile. And that sort of went a bit bonkers. And so I got sued for defamation from that. And then my agent, once the racism charges come out, this is a very hard one to put back in the box. It's like being mad, isn't it? It's like what's that brilliant Jack Nicholson film, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest? It's like, I'm not mad. You can't disprove anything. It's like you can't disprove. So once that's why it's such a dangerous allegation to make against someone and why I stood against it and why I wanted to take it on. So then I'm labelled a racist by this point, and I'm just like, oh, well, this is fun.
Shall I say what I find hard to believe in this day and age, particularly on X, which is it's the more intellectual social media platform, is that people can't see the nuance or people can't see your point. You're falsely being accused of being a racist. It's like somebody saying Laurence Fox is a murderer, and then in retaliation you say, well, in that case, you're a circus clown or you're a painter and decorator. Just any old nonsense in response to match their nonsense. But then that leads to you being sued when all you've done is fight fire with fire.
It was so obvious as well, the rhetorical device. I did it, then I explained why I did it, and then I took my post down and I said I've proven my point. Their post remained up. And in Nicola Thorpe's case and a couple of the others who've been promoted hugely in their lives, their post remains up that I'm a racist. They never took it down, never apologised, none of this stuff, with a lot of lefties. And so then I started up a political party. I got called into a room. I was seeing a girl at the time, one of the girls, Question Time actually, a girl called Madeline, who was working for the Telegraph. And
did you seduce her with your racist charm on that day?
I did. I surely did. And I was seeing her, and then she somehow, I have strange theories about this, but I think they're a bit conspiracy theorist. Anyway.
You can roll with it.
Meeting with her, she then goes, there's someone who wants to meet you. And I go, right. And I turn up in this room, and there's a long table, a bit longer than this, with a few people sitting around it. And it's like, what do you think we got to do to get the country back? Because the country's screwed. And I'm like, you're so right, it is screwed. You need to take back control of the culture and the media because that's how you'll affect the politics later on. If everyone can speak in the media space openly about the problems, then the politicians will start to feel, because they're all cowards mostly, politicians. The politicians will be able to start listening to people and go, oh, well, it's all right to say, to stop calling white people evil and, all that sort of stuff. But they were quite keen to start a political party. So they said, do you want to start a political party? And I was like, all right, I'll give it a go. Why not? So I started that.
That was the Reclaim Party.
Yeah. And then I ran for the London mayoral. And then they announced they were suing me actually on the day that I announced the London mayoral. So I had to then go through the campaigning for London mayoral being called a racist because the newspapers just write it down.
Was that orchestrated? Do you think?
I think it's all orchestrated. Once they want to take someone down, as we know through Tommy, they'll stop at nothing to take someone down. So I sort of went through that. I quite enjoyed that, actually. It was quite nice, doing a bit of campaigning.
Why would anybody vote for Sadiq Khan over Laurence Fox running for mayor?
Well, the million Muslims who live in London would vote for Sadiq Khan, I would posit. And then
There is that.
And then you've got half of London is, especially the wealthier part of London, is very socialist, isn't it? I mean, all you have to do, you go up to Primrose Hill and see some of those 4-storey, £10 million houses with vote 𝐼𝐶 or vote Sadiq Khan, and you're like, really? Oh, yeah, I get it. Socialists, you need to have an elite class.
I wonder how keen they are on actually sharing their wealth if push came to shove.
Well, they don't have to, do they? Because they're the elite class. All they have to do is want to care about other people. They don't have to actually care about other people. It's the virtue signalling that counts.
They want other people to share their wealth.
Yeah, or people they disagree with to share their wealth and then be shot, usually. And they so you've got a million Muslims in London. You've got Sadiq Khan's strange diversity thing. Diversity is our greatest strength. Bullshit. Multicultural cities are bad anyway when it comes to stupid ideas because everyone's sort of living in amongst each other and like rats in a cage. So it's never good places for ideas. They always tend to go left. And I think it would have gone better if I hadn't been in the papers all the time, being as a racist. But, I was pretty proud. I got 50,000 normal votes and then 250,000, I think, I can't remember, don't quote me on it, second preference votes. So if that had counted, which it doesn't because it just transfers up to the next lot, if that had counted, I would have done all right, actually. I would have beat the Lib Dems, I think.
Would you run for mayor again?
Yeah. I'm very, very, very tempted to run for mayor again on the harshest platform ever.
That's refreshing to hear.
To scrap the mayor, essentially, but also to come out with some things like we're not having any face coverings in London. That's not happening. We're not building any more mosques in London. Things like that.
I mean, while we're on the subject of running for mayor, you may as well give me your honest opinion of Sadiq Khan as a mayor and human being.
Well, I believe in God and Jesus, so I can't say I hate him. But I think he's the enemy of truth. I think he's a divisive, horrible, Britain-hating cunt of a human being, and I think the way that he delights in allowing people to march through the streets of London, calling all sorts of dreadful shit. Because I used to live there. I moved out of London now because I can't bear it. But I used to live just on the march route. So I would go, obviously, and stand in the middle of the bridges and stuff like that, just because they're walking along with their banners, as we know from our United Kingdom rallies. And they walk along with their banners and really piss people off if you're in the way of their banners. But if the banner is saying, like, Free Palestine or, whatever stuff they're putting on, I'm like, the police would come up to me and go, you've got to move, mate, you've got to move. And I'm like, why? It's my bridge. Why don't you stop it? There's a guy over there shouting, kill the Jews. Why don't you go and do something with him? Instead of giving me crap, this is I literally pay council tax for this bit of road to get mended or whatever. So I'd get pretty antagonistic towards that. I think Sadiq Khan he's a liar, which I always hate in people when, we all lie from time to time, but he makes his business out of lying. This whole idea of ULEZ, we've made the sky all clear, and if we drive at 20 miles an hour, everything will be fine. And if we cover London in cycle lanes, I'll feel better about myself while I drive around a 300 grand armour-plated Range Rover. He doesn't suffer the consequences of his own stupid fucking ideology, does he? And his ideology is one of the elite class and then the subhuman working class. That's what all socialism has always been about anyway. It's been about evaporating the middle class. And I think he's destroyed our capital city. And this whole thing of when he goes, diversity is our strength, diversity is our strength, diversity is our strength. So what the fuck does that mean? What does it mean?
Yeah,
Are you saying brown people are our strength?
It's kind of an empty term.
Yeah, I just think everyone is our strength. And, the people that aren't our strength, try and avoid them.
Decent people are our strength.
Yeah, and
Decent
it doesn't matter
beings.
about what colour you are. I hate identity politics. It drives me mad. I can't bear identity politics.
Well, this is a good good time for me to chime in with a little bit of irony for the audience, because there's always going to be people that don't know the full story and they've just read the headlines, which are predominantly Laurence Fox is racist, and I've read that you're a misogynist. So my observation of the irony is I've met your fiancé and I'm aware of who your best friend is. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Your fiancé is brown and your best friend is black.
Yeah, my fiancé's half black. Yeah, she's it's pretty bad. No one should get into the way we communicate on WhatsApp. Put it that way, because we're pretty racist to each other. She calls me Casper the Ghost, and I call her things in return. But you see, we don't give a shit about stuff like that, as no one used to.
Colour blindness.
Because no one used to care. And I get the fact that they've spent, 40, 50 years trying to make every school child feel terrible about the British Empire and everything like that. And we're kind of acceptable to the fact that white people are in some way evil. But it's not good. You shouldn't have one group of people that are evil just about something they can't change. Skin colour you can't change. You can't change sexuality. Calvin, my best mate, who is black, he's also mixed race, but he would argue differently about the gay thing. But again, we disagree about the stuff. And my sister, who I had a really long chat with last night, she would be very much of the left in anyone's, who sort of cares about politics or anything like that. We're the best chats ever because she's confidently who she is and I'm confidently who I am. And we're both open to different points of view. Do you know what I mean? So I find what she has to say quite refreshing because you learn from people you disagree with. But now that we've got these sort of tribal identity groups everywhere, all demanding some sort of rights or privilege, like, especially the privilege idea that apparently only white people have privilege. My best mate for many years was a prison officer, and he got kicked in the head by an inmate and had a brain hemorrhage, and it nearly killed him, to be fair. And I was like, well, I was sitting there staring at him in hospital, doing one of the, not one of the best paid jobs on earth, dealing with some pretty fucking dangerous people in Belmarsh, getting kicked in the head, having a brain hemorrhage, and people are sitting there telling me he's got white privilege. I'm like, really? Talk me through that one, would you? Please. Talk me through all the people that have lost their jobs in what were once our industrial heartlands in England. Talk me through their white privilege. And what it is just like a bait and switch, isn't it? To go, well, what we're going to do now is we're going to fill your communities with diversity as our strength, and you can fucking deal with it, mate. And it's like, well, hang on, am I allowed to like my country and things like that? Does that make me a racist, liking my country, liking our national anthem, liking our traditions? And if you notice, you go to any national celebration like the coronation or anything like that, you see that it's a sea of different coloured faces, patriotic people. That's what you've got. It's not about skin colour, which is the big argument that's been kicking off recently, but it's not.
Yeah, we will move on from skin colour because there's so much more to get into with you. But it's an impossibility for you to have a superiority complex based on your skin colour when you consider the fact you share a life with somebody with a different skin colour and your best friend, who you respect greatly, also has a different skin colour. But just out of curiosity, what goes on behind closed doors? When you aired your distaste for Black History Month, what did your mixed-race girlfriend and best friend think of your outrage towards that?
She hates it. She thinks it's patronising and bullshit. And she hates the fact that that white people, certain white people, and I get this a lot in the street as well from black people, who will, disproportionately stop me. They go, thank you so much for not treating us like we need whitey to get along in life. It's like we're somehow sort of a bit thicker, because that's actually racist, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
Like treating people like they're a bit of an underclass. Oh, poor little thing.
Yeah.
We'll get you some BAME cards to make you feel better.
And we'll give you a whole month to yourself.
Go on, have a nice month. You and the LGBTQ lot, you have a nice month to yourselves. From us, from the whitey. Thank you.
We're going to move on to that bit now. But I just want to put this out there as a kind of a caveat that if there was a White History Month, like if there was a 12th of the year dedicated to white-skinned history, as a white-skinned man, I would put my hands up and say, fuck off. Please, we don't need that. We're all in this fight together. So I wouldn't be for that.
We could have a British History Month. couldn't you?
Perfect, yeah.
You could.
All together.
And you go, oh, look, because, one of the things they got me on was that I said it was tokenistic for them to have a Sikh soldier in 1917, which I thought it was. Even though there were some Sikhs there, I thought, you don't have to fucking shove diversity at me all the time. And, you get black Anne Boleyns and all that sort of stuff, but you never get white Nelson Mandela's in Netflix series and stuff like that. But a British History Month, and they keep going diversity is our strength, but it isn't. Unity is our strength. So you can either turn around and go, oh, you know what, there's some really good things Britain's done we should be really proud of, not rather than just hating on ourselves the whole time. And it's systemic, so it comes through all of our education system, and it comes through, I think it's revenge. I've started to believe the way we think about ourselves as British people now is revenge for not losing the Second World War. I think the lefties, the socialists in this country, were so annoyed that we didn't lose the Second World War that they gave us a National Health Service to make sure that we were no longer a country. So I think it's something like 70% of our tax take, unsubsidised tax take, is spent on the National Health Service. So we don't really we're not really a country at all. We're a National Health Service with a little country on the side of it. And
if we've got no borders, then what on earth are we?
We're on our way out with the massive demographic changes going on.
The more I look into leftism, the more convinced I am that it's more of a mental health issue.
You think I think leftism is about people that don't have any faith in anything. So I have kids, you have kids, you feel duty bound to your children to pass on wisdom, and this is why leftism left in the Communist Manifesto, he says the family is the greatest enemy of all, because the family is actually quite a socialist unit. If you think about it, everyone does their bit, but it only works in very small environments. But we were meant to, the family is where wisdom passes down from one generation to the next. So leftism, I think, is a total lack of faith in anything. It's like light switched on when you became conscious, light switched off when you die, and that's it, game over, it doesn't matter anything at all. Grab what you can while you're in the middle. That's what leftism is to me. The more sort of, I think it's more Christian thinking or theistic thinking, for want of a better way of putting it, is that your life has meaning. And therefore, as Russell Crowe had said, echoes in the afterlife. You know what I mean? That idea that what you do here means something, and therefore you're responsible for what you do. And to a leftist, stealing everyone's money and destroying their life, it's just like, well, if it worked for me, it worked for me. Whereas to a conservative who just wants to be sort of left alone to get on with their life and not have too much of the state getting involved, they feel that their duty is to give a decent set of morals to their children, so that their children learn not to put themselves first and to think of others and to do all that sort of stuff. Whereas, you bump into a woke person, they just don't, it comes across like a mental health disorder, but it's actually just a bit missing of their, we've all got a gap in our, we're like a horseshoe, aren't we? We've got this little gap here. Some people fill it with gear, some people fill it with God. It's whatever you fill it with, but it's...
Some people fill it with gear, some people fill it with God.
Well, some people do both, as I have at various times in my past. I just think that it's much more spiritual than that. I don't think it's a mental health thing. I think it's a worldview thing. It's like, it's like the plane was crashing and there was a mum with two little young babies and it's sinking down in the water. A leftist would bunch past her and use, if they wanted to sort of get a better treatment, they'd take the babies and stamp on a few people's heads on the way out. Your conservative or your commonsensical person would be trying to help others to get out first. That's the difference I see between leftist and what they call conservative, but I just call common sense, or far-right extremists nowadays. Yeah,
that is a jolly good perspective. I enjoyed listening to the mechanics of your mind there. Let's move on to the LGBTQ flag that you burnt in your garden, and because, again, some people just would have seen that and thought, well, this is just purposely being provocative. But I learned something from you, which you'll explain why you burnt that flag, and also I'd like you to describe the meanings of the different chevrons. I didn't know this until I heard it from you.
Yeah, you see, it's worth doing a bit of reading, isn't it? About
pay attention to people that are making noise, because some people are making it for a jolly good reason.
Especially when you suddenly see a flag flying on lots of buildings, and you're like, oh, hang on, what flag is this for? So the original rainbow flag, Calvin, I think, would probably disagree with me. The original rainbow flag is a sort of misappropriation of the rainbow. So they miss out a colour. I don't know which colour it is, actually, weirdly. But I can see why it needed to exist, because I think I grew up in a homophobic Britain. My good mate came out to me in school and was really, really nervous. And, Britain was a much more homophobic place than it is now. So I could see the fact that you have a rainbow flag up there in a bar or above the door of a bar, and gay people can go, you know what, that's a place where no one's going to, knock me out for being gay or whatever. I could see that. But then this modern progressive version of it comes with a bunch of chevrons. So I'm like, I see it flying everywhere, and it's like Sadiq Khan does it like the Hindenburg rallies, and you're like, what the fuck is that doing on Regent Street? That's Britain's main London's main shopping street, mate. Why are you dedicating it to some political movement, which I'm not really even sure what it is? I thought it was just about gay people. And you get the chevrons. So you get a black chevron, Black Lives Matter. What the fuck that's got to do with being gay? No idea. Brown chevron, just for brown people, people from India maybe, gays from India. Then you've got transsexual and the QIA plus as it works its way down to QI, queer intersex plus. And everyone knows what the plus stands for, but no one wants to talk about what the plus stands for, because the plus stands for pedophile. And I'm disgusted by this flag. It stands for everything that I think it's the most homophobic thing in the world, because at the end of the day, it's like, if you're gay, it's like, no, you're not gay, mate, you're just a woman. It's like, well, look how well that turns out when a man decides to become a woman. They never look, the hands too big, the hands and the Adams up. It just doesn't work. Sorry, girls, boys. By all means, feel free to do it, but it doesn't always work well. Hence they're like, well, we'll get them young before they become puberty. It'll be perfect. So I think it's an aberration of the beauty of life. We were all born. There's nothing wrong with kids. The idea of telling a child that they're born in the wrong body or something like that. I totally understand that people are gay in this world, and I think I'm really liberal when it comes to stuff like that.
I am, same.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me two shits at all. But what does bother me is fucking around with kids. So I'm like, A, it's homophobic, so I don't like it for that reason. And B, it's involving the mutilation and sexualization of children. And therefore, to me, it becomes satanic. And I wanted to educate people, because one of my gay mates was like, honey, why are you burning my flag? I love my flag. Why are you burning it? And I was like, you know what the flag symbolises? So I explained to him, and then, burn that fucker. So even, and I went to Pride, because I do like to put my money where my mouth is when it comes to this stuff. And I went to Pride, and I got sort of assaulted by a bunch of hairy armpitted women who definitely weren't lesbians. They were just kind of finding themselves.
Unkept.
Unkept non-binaries or something like that. And they started shouting at me. I'd met with some gays, and I'd been talking to some young gays. And
because of the flag incident?
Yeah, because I wanted to go and see people and like talk to them. And also, I want people to know that just because I hate an ideology, it doesn't mean I hate the person. This is a big distinction people make when you make tribal groups. You think that if you dislike a tribal identity, that you hate everyone in it. No, I don't. I just hate the tribal identity. To
an extent, you're actually fighting for gay and lesbian. You're fighting for gay and lesbian rights more than they are, because they're allowing the infiltration of the trans, and then, God help us all if the MAP movement starts to slide in there, which you think it is.
It is. It's right there, and there's lots of people that will talk about it. But the interesting thing was, the way the police dealt with it.
And who the fuck calls it MAP? I'm just using that for context of how ridiculous things have become.
Well, it's another classic leftist trick, isn't it? Change the meaning of language. I'm weirdly, you would have thought, being a liberal, I'm quite liberal on lots of things, but I'm really unliberal on abortion. But I would never call it reproductive healthcare rights. I'm like, whose healthcare is being protected here? Certainly not the babies, but that's another one. And gender affirming care. It's like, no, what are you doing? You're chopping off someone's dick. That's what you're doing. You're not affirming anything. You're actually sentencing someone to a life of abject misery in the most
That's
part.
what we call in the trade mutilation.
Yeah, we call it mutilation and child experimentation, and we didn't like it when Dr. Mengele did it in Germany, so why do we like it now? So I went, and these little girls started having a scream at me because, you know, there was sort of non-binary offendertrons who'd never fucking learned anything in their lives. And instead of going after the girls and telling them not to harass me, the, you know, pride-clad police officer who was, you know, covered in rainbows instead of police uniform, which is another aberration. You're a police officer, not a political advertising board.
That's another pet hate of mine.
I fucking hate it.
For probably all the reasons people aren't aware of. It's not that I'm anti a Pride Day. Good for you. But I don't want my police dressing up and prancing around, taking their eye off the ball where people's lives are at stake. Police are paid by us to do their fucking job. Please don't dance and prance around when you're meant to be there to save lives.
Yeah, and police us without fear or favour. No preferred identity group. Don't do it. Like you wouldn't if there was, God forbid, a march of genuine far-right extremist psychos with, you know, swastika tattoos on their forehead, and it was their special day to have a march for, you know, the We Hate All Brown People March Day, then the police wouldn't like get dressed up and put swastika armbands on, would they? You know, it's a tribal identity movement. Don't do it. And anyway, I got saved by so the police non-binary thing, I don't know what it was, came up to me with the rainbows on and started giving me all that. And then these two lovely sort of mid-50s gay Mancunian guys came over and went, "Hey, get the fuck out of the way. This guy is fucking fighting for us. You fucking morons. Fuck off. You're not even gay." He just went mental at these people and saying that they were ruining their celebration of being, you know, and he said, "You've killed it. You've corporatized it." They were done, and then they stood and they took me by the arms and they just protected me and they said, "Come on, we'll go for a drink." And off we went and had a really nice drink. That was it.
ULEZ. So ULEZ is, well, it's a massive bone of contention for anyone that gives a shit about the poor because it's a tax on the poor. You were very vocal about it, which led to a mass, in my opinion, establishment attack where your house was raided by, was it 6 police officers?
At least.
So you've got 6 police officers raiding your house, arresting you, taking all your comms, your children's comms, and this was because of what, a tweet that you put out?
I think I'd said I was speaking to 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐞𝐿 before he went bonkers again, and I was saying I fully support the people taking down of the ULEZ cameras. I fully support it, and I think that is, in their view, they saw that as kind of incitement to criminal damage. But I was like, well, if the camera wasn't there yesterday morning and you suddenly put it there now, you know, who's to say that it should be there at all? You've consulted the public. No one wants it. Your own study says it's not going to work. So you're essentially installing a surveillance state on us lot and the way we move in order to charge people more to go about their daily lives, which is all ULEZ is. It's just a tax on people trying to actually fucking work and get on with their lives under the basis of the fact that, you know, we're going to save the planet and some penguins and shit, which is all bollocks anyway. You know, obviously we affect the climate, but it's not some giant emergency. And if it was a giant emergency, people would do something about it instead of inventing giant emergencies to do something. So I said that, yeah, and then I woke up next morning and knock on the door. Was there a knock on the door or did they just come straight through? I can't remember. But anyway, they, you know what they like to do, the police, they like to properly intimidate you.
Was it the first time you'd ever encountered an experience like that with the police?
No, I've had a couple of experiences with the police during COVID and stuff like that because I'd totally ignored all of their rules and advertised that I was ignoring all of their rules. Like,
Comes with absolutely no surprise.
I was like, I'm really looking forward to having a party tonight. I'm going to invite as many people as possible round and stuff like that. So I'd had a couple of run-ins with the cops. And
set fire to a few masks.
I did a bit of that. I certainly did a bit of that. Didn't wear any masks. It's amazing how quickly you can knock up a fake doctor certificate, isn't it? Before a long-haul flight.
But had you been arrested before?
Yes, but only for assault when I was younger.
So nothing like
No, nothing like
a dawn raid. There's 6 of us. We're ransacking your house and putting the fear in God in you, which I'm sure they was trying to do.
They were trying to do, but I was sort of, I was quite spooked, but it was either the day after or 2 days after I'd said I didn't want to shag someone on GB News, and they'd all got really upset about that as well.
That was the day after you got arrested. You done that?
Yeah, it was something. I was either, I think it was the night before. Or
you was on a roll.
I was on fire.
I didn't realise it was like that they were that close together.
I know.
Okay, so let me cover both of them. So I know that Andrew Bridgen was in your house at the time you got arrested, which was fortunate because he was able to record the whole thing.
Yeah.
And you didn't look particularly concerned. Was that your poker face, or did you just genuinely think, well, I've got nothing to hide, so whatever?
Well, I was mostly relieved that my big dog wasn't there. But so my big dog was out for a walk.
I bet the police were.
Because I love my Blaze, and if the police had come into the house in the way that they come into the house, he would have got attached himself to them and not let go until they ended his life. So I was very relieved about that, because if they'd that would have escalated pretty badly. I would have gone, I had a little hatchet for my for kindling and stuff for the fire. I would have gone at someone with that if they'd gone near my dog. I love my dog, and they were all. It was such bluster anyway. There was no reason to police. And on the car to the station, there were stabbings being called in. There were domestic violence incidents being called in. And I'm sat in a car with fucking 6 cops who should be doing their job somewhere else. Anyway, yeah. So they barged in. I thought, I'm just going to mock you. My heart was going bang, 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 bang. But I was going, I'm just going to mock you and make you feel like tiny little pathetic, Stasi little twats that you are, because you are. I'm just following orders is not an excuse. So they took me down the station. I then, it was quite sweet actually, they took me down the station and I could tell that I was winning one of them over.
Well, you have got a certain charm, Laurence. In between your misogyny, your racism, and your bigotry and your transphobia and homophobia, there's a bit of charm there.
Somewhere there's a human being hiding inside. And they took me down to the cop shop, and I was beginning to win one of them over. They stuck me in a cell. They left me there like they do, just to piss you off for as long as possible. And then my little hatch opened, and this little brownie came sliding onto my hatch, and I was like, "Oh, that's nice." I'm going to go and get my brownie, and one of the cops was like, "We're all with you." So that was nice. So I had that, and then they let me out, and then the cop who I'd started to win over said, just as I was walking out the station without any of my kids' stuff, I was like, "Why do you need my kids' stuff? What do you think?" Because they thought I was the mastermind of the Blade Runners, which is hilarious if they'd seen how fucking early I go to bed at night. I'm really one of those. 10? What is 10? Not to find me wandering around at 3 o'clock in the morning with an angle grinder. I just can't be arsed, mainly. But hats off to all those that do.
What were your bail conditions? My
bail conditions were I wasn't allowed to say the word Blade Runners. And I wasn't allowed to say the word ULEZ. But they've run out now. But I'm still under so many investigations by the police. When I think about it, I'm like, how many ongoing investigations have I about?
Yeah, I want to come on to a few of them. Before we go to the GB News, Ava Adams situation that took place, police investigation. So, correct me if I'm wrong. Narinda Kaur.
Yeah.
You posted a picture of her vagina on the internet.
Yeah.
Why did you do that, and what's been the outcome?
She was talking about higher standards in public life or something like that. And you just sometimes, I can't resist it. It's like higher standards, like flashing a minge to the world, those sort of higher standards. Because the way these things work is she gets, if you just done Big Brother or whatever and you're like the Z-list celebrity, you go out on a publicity tour. And, one of the conditions of going out on the publicity tour is to not wear any 𝐾𝐿. And to, when you first get papped, you do a deal with the pap to go, if the pap gets 100, 200 quid for a picture of Narinda, or you may get 400 quid for a picture of Narinda and her minge, Narinda gets to keep some of the money. So Narinda was walking around flashing her minge at people left, right and centre. So, don't start calling for high standards in public life, darling. So, yeah, I posted it along with something like that. And Narinda then said that she'd been sexually assaulted. I'd sexually assaulted her But Narinda's not the smartest knife in the drawer. With all due respect to her, she's a human being and I love her, but she's not, you're not going to want to run your university challenge team with you. Sorry, that's misogynistic, but it's true. She's thick. She then said she'd been sexually assaulted because it's under upskirting laws. Not totally aware of the fact that I wasn't there 15 years ago when she flashed her minge at anybody, so had nothing to do with it. And B, she knew very well it was going to happen, and all of this upskirting stuff not protected by, if you're doing it in a public place with a reasonable suspicion that you might be seen. Like if a girl went to take a wee outside a bar or something, a famous person, and a pap took a photo of it, she couldn't turn around and get upset with the pap.
Okay.
It's that sort of thing.
So you wouldn't consider that revenge porn if somebody published it, for example?
Well, I think I did, once she started accusing me, I think I started posting pictures, because I've got all my kit off in movies a few times, so I think I started sending pictures back of me naked, saying I'm now revenge porning myself.
The zero fuck element of Laurence Fox.
Just what's the point? It's, this permanent victimhood. It's like, you don't flash your minge and then turn into Mary Whitehouse. You don't do it, or Mother Teresa. It's like, everyone knows what you're after. You're after fame and attention. You've got fame and attention. You're loving it. Every time she tweeted about me, she's probably getting 400 quid from her, whatever it's called, Twitter monetization stuff. So
interactions?
Something she used to get
impressions.
A lot. Impressions. So she just, but I quite liked Narinda when I first met her. I thought she was all right. I don't think she's very bright.
I have to admit, and I've asked Narinda to come on, I've got a certain fondness towards her.
Yeah, she is. You can't.
I disagree with 98% of the stuff that she says, and I think it's utter fucking madness, but there's something about her, and she's going to come on, and I'm going to find out what makes her tick and why she is the way she is. But yeah, I've got I know that she's, she gets some big stick on social media, but I do think she brings it on herself. But for me, there's something in me there's a slight fondness there, and I'm looking forward to speaking to her to find out what moulded this woman.
Well, I've got nothing but fondness for her, really.
Have you made up since?
They're not really the making up kind, are they? The wokies.
She's blocked me a few times and then unblocked me and agreed to come on the podcast. So there's hope for us all.
There's hope for us all. I hope that she
forgives you.
Yeah, at the end of the day, she then accused me of sexual assault, which was then put in the newspapers, and was then my kids are going, "Have you sexually assaulted someone?" And then by that point, I lost my temper, and I'm like, "You can't." She's accusing me of something I haven't done.
And did the police approach you for that?
Yeah, I went to the police and I said, "This is what she's writing," and the police obviously NFA'd her. I don't know if they NFA'd her. Actually, no, I think that's gone to, they'll NFA it, because the police, when it comes to me, I get, as my libel trial has taught me.
And what about you posting the picture?
Oh yeah, no, that's
it's just squashed.
Yeah,
no dramas.
There's not. They'd like to make a law for it, and this is why. Do you remember when everyone got really upset with Sir Christopher Chope, who was one of the very few MPs who wouldn't go for the upskirting law?
Yes,
because he'd actually thought it through. As opposed to all of, most reactions, if you try and think like a leftist thinks, it's all emotional. None of it's rational. It's all emotional. So you go, no, of course I don't want people upskirting. It's terrible. Law, do it, write it. But, you've got to think about it. Like, what happens if someone like Narinda starts flashing a minge at everyone? Is it upskirting then? And these are questions you've got to ask. And I did.
I hope Narinda takes this the right way when she's watching it.
I love you, Narinda. You know I love you. Well, you came on my GB News show and we used to have a really nice time, and then I said I wanted to shag, didn't want to shag someone.
Let's move on to that. Because, so obviously, GB News, it'd be interesting to know if you think that was a purposeful hatchet job or not, when you was, you had a weekly slot after the Watershed on GB News, getting paid handsomely for it, 200k per annum. And you said during an interview with Dan Wootton, now when I watched it, I thought, fucking hell, Laurence has had a few drinks and he's getting well excited here, because you said words to the effect of, who would want to shag Ava Adams? Now, to someone that's just tuned into that, would think, why on earth would he be saying that? there's other ways to word it, but, who cares? But there was something that she said in regards to male suicide before that, and you've got experience with male suicide, which you took umbrage to, and I would say rightly so. So this is another good opportunity for my audience and listeners and viewers for you to actually paint the full picture so people don't think you're the guy that goes on the internet and decides who he is and isn't going to shag.
Yeah.
Although you're entitled to because you're quite a handsome chap.
Thank you, darling. She was on Politics Live the day before. Jeff Norcott was quite rightly raising the issue of male suicide, the biggest killer of men under 50. I've got a few experiences of male suicide and a few experiences of people who were in the military who've taken their own lives, and it's not really, really unpleasant. And also not people that my siblings do as well. So it's been a big part of our lives, and it's horrible to see what. It's such an awful tragedy. And, there's so many things one could say about male suicide, which I probably should have said. You're absolutely right. I should have said that. But being given a couple of days to brew on it and to think about it, the way my mind works is like, she said, it's a cultural war issue. It's like, really? You want to denigrate the destruction of someone's life to a cultural war issue, slag? Which is I probably should have said that. I would have got away with it, but it was the other bit that was bad. And the way my brain worked was I just thought, I started thinking, what would happen if you ended up with a bird like that?
Okay.
And you felt sad one day, and your job was going wrong, and you felt like your life had no purpose, and you were struggling, and you didn't know what was going on in your life, and you were with a girl like that, and then you just said, sometimes I just feel like I can't go on. And she goes, I do grow up. It's not. Have you heard how difficult it is for women? Or something like that. And I started to say in my head, I was going, oh, yeah, you could really, that would be a bad relationship to have.
It'd be very damaging.
So then by the time I'd had 2 glasses of wine and dinner.
I knew you'd had a drink.
And Dan Wooden was.
I knew you'd had a drink.
Well, it's nearly 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, he was entitled to.
It was like, and also I'm old school. I thought, it's after 9, you can say whatever you want.
We are of the watershed era.
Yeah, I thought that it was fine. So I said, who'd want to shag that? I did actually preface it with saying we want strong women in this world and wonderful, but that all got ignored, as it always does. And then I went to bed and I woke up in the morning, and life is bad. It's only happened a few times to me, but life is bad. When you get your news notifications flicking up on your phone.
And there you are.
It's you. You're your own news notifications. So I was like, I'd gone to bed thinking, yeah, it's fine. Who cares? Say what you think. Someone's got to say these things. So I did. And then I woke up and there was, news notifications saying Laurence Fox is suspended from GB News after vile misogynist rant. It's always a vile misogynist rant from me, even if I say it in this tone of voice.
Oh, you need those buzzwords, of course.
Yeah. And so and then it was a couple of days later the police came round.
It was another police investigation.
But as a mate of mine has quite rightly said, he said, this is one of the problems with wokery. Surely saying that you didn't want to shag a woman is honouring them.
I'm in the clear.
I'm honouring you by saying I'm not worthy of your woke feminism 5.0. Your sort of let's destroy men and call them toxic. That sort of class of woman, type of woman is dreadful.
Yes.
I've been out with a couple of them.
Yeah, I
they
totally
cause
agree.
Nothing but misery.
And you would never, ever date a woke female again, would you?
No. Not in a million years. Well, fortunately, I don't have to because I'm getting married to Lizzie this year, so we'll be all right.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. And but yeah, I've dated a couple of woke women. Do you know what I found out from the last woke woman I dated, and I found this out on Monday, right? So I'm saying to Lizzie, because we've got to be all grown up and stuff. I'm like, let's get the bank account sorted so that we've got, because I believe that when you're together, you should have your money should be together. The more things that tie you together, the harder it is for the devil to pull you apart, in my view. And I think it's right. So I was like,
easier for the government to tear you apart.
Well, yeah, exactly. Easier for anybody to tear you apart, divide you. Anyway, she's like, all right, so we're going through my bank statements. And she's like, are you having an affair? And I'm like, why? And she goes, who are all these flowers?
They're for all the women I keep abusing online.
So we're looking at this thing, and it's like, we're adding it up. And it's like in 1 year, 3,700 quid in flowers. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, oh, fuck. I remember it because the company, Freddie's Flowers, thanks for not returning some of it. The company, when I went out with this woke bird for a bit, she was like, oh, it's a lovely company called Freddie's Flowers. Let's get some flowers together and, you know, you can have them delivered and we can have them on the table when you see me. I'm like, oh, great. Okay. And we did it. And then we went out for a while and then we broke up and it stopped for me. But what she did was at various moments in my life, significant moments, like when we broke up, she changed it. She started getting very large bunches of flowers delivered to her mum's house. A very large bunch of flowers delivered to lots of people's houses.
And you're still considering a joint account?
Lizzie's not insane. But this is woke feminist vengeance. So what she did, and when Lizzie and I got engaged, the next week, she doubled the size of the bouquet and made it weekly. So spending 80, 90 quid a week on flowers. So I've just clawed back a load of it from the bank. And I'm just an example of what psychopathic woke women are like. She's just like, I couldn't have him, I'll have his flowers. And it's like, he can send me flowers every week. And I'm just like, you're insane. You're crazy. And no wonder I dumped you.
Yeah. Speaking of banks, remind me to come back towards the end because we're no way near finished yet. This is far too good a conversation. But we'll talk about the banks trying to close you down and attack your finances like they do when you start speaking truth to power. Piers Morgan, I've got my opinions on him. The flip-flopping, he's always fighting for the team that seemed to be winning at the time. He once described you as a repulsive individual.
I'll take that. Cheers, Piers.
Well, yeah, I would wear that as a badge of honour from Piers Morgan.
From a guy that dressed up some guys in Iraqi uniforms and then got fake soldiers to piss on them. Yeah, I'll take that from a badge.
Well, this is why I'd like to line you up, because if he said that about you publicly, and some people have read that he has put that in writing, he thinks you're a repulsive individual, it's only fair that you give him a description.
He's a man who lacks courage. He's a flip-flopper, as you say. He's woke.
Claims not to be.
Yeah, of course he does. And he will become less woke as the world becomes less woke. He's what they used to call in show business a positioner. So, and the military use that term as well, don't they, when it comes to heroes? It's like you're standing just close enough to the hand grenade when it goes off to look like a bit of a hero, but nowhere near to actually get hurt.
Just on the outskirts of the explosion.
Yeah. Look, God love him. He's a human being. I really genuinely don't hate anyone. I don't think he's, is he repulsive? Yeah, some of the things he's done are really dreadful. But, him as a human being is totally fine. But what he did with those Iraqi soldiers, and, that you think about what that would have been in the age of social media, how that might have turned, especially the modern demographics of Britain, how many people that could have put in danger to set up these hoaxes that Piers Morgan did. And also he's paid by Murdoch. He's therefore paid by the broader establishment. And Piers Morgan's in charge of making sure... I think I find him disappointing. He's
got so much potential to be a real figurehead for the UK, isn't he?
He does, but he's, and also I busted him. He got really upset with me because after he was doing his monologues every morning during COVID, it was like, oh, Laurence, you are a disgrace. And, and then he's saying that everyone should not be allowed treatment on the NHS if they didn't want to get jabbed by the experimental heart palpitation concoction. I then found out from a mate of mine, because lots of people contact me all the time, that he was, during Tier 4 restrictions, he was in fucking Barbados while giving everyone the grief about, staying at home and lock yourselves up until, I know people who went through lockdown who have never recovered. Like and really close to us as a family, people who went into lockdown positive, optimistic, looking after themselves, going to the gym, hopeful, looking forward to things in life. And then they just, the minute the lockdown hit, they were just like, fuck it. And they drank a case of Stella a day. And, I hate the people that made that happen. I hate the people behind that I really, really hate. So Piers Morgan's kind of, Yeah, it's just disappointing. I wouldn't. I always gauge everything in life about who do I want to be standing next to when the shit hits the fan, and I would like to be stood as far away from Piers Morgan as possible. That's it. But I wouldn't shoot him or anything. I'm like.
That's the thumbnail. I wouldn't shoot Piers Morgan.
On my gravestone. I missed.
Next time, Gadget.
Yes. Next time. I wouldn't shoot him. I've got a bit of a different personality on social media because you have to be a bit more bulletproof because you're defending something that's really important. And also, I've got no ambitions I don't want to appear as this sort of smarmy, well-spoken, posh bloke who can sit there and like go, this is my decent argument for this. I just want to go, it's a fucking problem. We should talk about it now because it's fucking everyone's life. And I actually, I got thrust into this position. I didn't go, what should I do this year? Should I do another series of extremely highly paid TV or Netflix or a film or something? Or shall I spend myself jobless and moneyless trying to work out what the fuck is going wrong in our culture? So it's not like I auditioned for the job of what I do now. So I don't think there's much time in me wasting my time bullshitting about why I do it. I'm like, this is the problem, and I'll call out the problem, call a spade a spade. And I think that irks people like Piers Morgan. But then I look at what stuff that he says and I'm like, how is that guy still in a job? He called for his own citizens to be denied treatment on the NHS, and he it's the same with Farage. It's like, you just got to take just a few looks at them and go, why does everyone worship these people?
If you look close enough, the cracks are there.
Oh, they're fucking everywhere, all over all of it. And I called it out. That's why I've taken my 3-month sabbatical, because I'm just like, I called it out on Question Time. Everything I said on Question Time now is mainstream dialogue. I've told you what they're going to be pissed off about. Tommy's known it much longer than anyone else has. And you're sat there going, how many times can you bang your head against a brick wall without, in Tommy's case, he's a machine when it comes to that sort of stuff because he's so motivated. But in my case, I'm just like, you've got to call out the problem. If you can't call out the problem, then no one can do anything about the problem. And there are very, very serious vested interests in people not calling out the problem.
And if everyone's pussyfooting around the problem, that is the problem.
Yeah.
At least you don't do that and you own it, and people they've got to tip their hat to you. And I've got a feeling that once people have finished watching this full interview, anybody that was under any illusion or thought there was any truth in Piers Morgan's evaluation of you, I've got a pretty strong feeling they're going to disagree with Piers on this one.
But I don't mind if people think I'm a vile human being. I'm trying not to be.
Repulsive is what you said.
Repulsive, sorry. Thanks, Piers. I think people are totally entitled to an opinion, but I don't like opinions that are created like the propaganda machine that is created around someone like Tommy, for example. Because maybe I'm switching topic and you don't want to switch topic.
Well, no, I'm going to come to Tommy,
right.
But there's a few more things about your life. So we mentioned Piers Morgan giving people a finger wagging from his sun lounger in Barbados during lockdown. And tell me if I'm overstepping the mark, and if you don't want to touch base on it, then we will move subject, because I know that I would struggle. I found the passing of your mum during lockdown particularly upsetting. I choked up when I was doing my research, because not just only a son losing his mum, but the process of the funeral. Because I read about, you can only have 4, 5, 6 people attend a funeral, but I didn't know the person, and unless you have heard it firsthand, you can't really get a proper feel. But when I researched it and found out that's what happened to you, I found it upsetting. So it obviously beyond heartbreak for you. Do you want to touch base on how unjust that was?
Well, yeah, look, the injustice began when they locked people down. That it was never part of anyone's pandemic plan. It was, again, a complete, it's an entirely separate political issue why lockdowns happened in the first place. But my mum was ill, and they were trying to stop us sort of being in a room with her when she was actually dying, and it was if you think that I'm quite forthright in the way I express myself, there are members of my family who are more forthright than I am, and they don't use their mouths to be forthright. Put it that way. To the point where police were called when people were trying to say you can't go in that room, you can't do this, you can't do that. This was, and it was getting very, very highly strung. And I'm like, this is fucking needless. My mother's dying, you bastards. And she's not going to fucking die of COVID, is she? She's not dying of COVID. She's dying of something else, which she was. And so we went round to see her, and there were a lot, because emotion is huge, when someone you love so much is dying. And it was just so made worse by the authorities and, anyone else in these fucking arseholes turning up in hazmat suits like you're dealing with Ebola. It's like it's a fucking cold. Sorry, guys, but that's what it is. And my mum even said in the last minute, she was like, don't let them make me a COVID death. Please don't let them make me a COVID death. She was that fucking knew it. And then I think she said, oh, do shut up to my dad. And then she'd get me a brandy. And then got a brandy, and then she passed away, and we all were in bits. And then in come the medical lot, and they're like, my people are going, can we touch her? And they're like, we're just like snot and tears everywhere. It's like, it is what it is anyway. So I was pissed off about that. I was pissed off that she just wanted to die in peace at home, which was great that she got, but there was just impediments to it all, and it made very stressful situation much more stressful. And then you get to the funeral, and the funeral's like, you can only have 5 people at the funeral. Or was it? Yeah, it was 5 people. And that's including my dad, and they had 5 kids. So we're like, I'm really sorry, we're all coming to the funeral. And we go to the funeral, and my poor dad, no one could put their hands on his shoulder, no one could touch him. They got out, they're like, just so you know, we've got to get the coffin out quickly, it's got to go in the ground, we can't say anything about it. All these bullshit fucking rules just made up by moron idiots, the same people that put our poor kids in masks in schools and sanitise their hands until they broke and acne their faces, all these pathetically pointless, stupid control freak rules. And I just remember standing there in the freezing cold on these little markers that they'd put for space. And no one could give anyone a hug or touch my dad or give it. And they threw her in the ground like she was some piece of toxic radioactive shit. And I just was so livid by that point. And but we wanted to honour my dad because he thought the whole thing was bullshit as well. In fact, COVID was my family is quite fragmented, certainly politically it's very fragmented. And it was pretty much the only thing we all, without ever speaking to each other, we all came to the conclusion it was the biggest pile of bollocks ever. And I just thought to myself, none of these fuckers are paying attention to any of these rules. I knew they weren't, because you know what? The people that come up with rules, give you a rule, go like, you can't go over there. They're always going over there. I had it throughout my showbiz career. Because I smoke, I would always find out at any award ceremony, I'd find out the best place to have a smoke quickly, because they go on forever as people wank off about how wonderful they are at acting. And I would find a place to smoke, and then I'd come back, and Russell Crowe would say something like, "Oh, mate, you found someone to smoke?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, I'll take you next time." And he's like, "Oh, cool, cheers, mate." And then I'd take Russell Crowe to smoke, and then I'd go back to my seat, go back for a cigarette. It's like, "No, sorry, you can't come out here." And then I see Russell Crowe behind, having a fag, and I'm just like, "That's why they make these rules." And then you find out that they've been on the lash in Downing Street, as you would have expected. And you just think, my mum meant something to me and to our whole family. And, she was an amazing woman. And she was actually, for all the shit I get about being, anti-NHS or anti-massive socialist state, she worked for the fucking state, and she worked bloody hard for it as well. And she was an amazing, amazing woman. And they denied her the dignity. But that's nothing compared to those people who died in empty hospitals while the TikToking nurses did all their shit. And I'm not saying that COVID didn't exist, and I'm not saying it didn't kill people, but the reaction to COVID was ridiculously disproportionate. And time has proven that, you know, also cobbling together some jab that's harming people. And, you know, Piers Morgan would still say today, you know, they saved millions of lives. And it's like, do you don't know that, Piers? And ultimately what COVID did was it killed people with multiple comorbidities. And that's really sad for people it killed, you know. And I feel sorry for people. I'm lacking in empathy for them. But that was the price that we paid as a society for that, I think I don't think people have actually really properly come to terms with it yet.
I think people are still dealing with the PTSD from the lockdown. And I want to say, and I mean this implicitly, my sincere condolences for the way that all rolled out with your mum and anybody else watching and listening that's been through a similar experience that was deprived of that proper farewell and that hug that you so desperately need on a day like a funeral, or at least your hand being held.
Her mates, though, as well. So I meet her mates and they go, we can't believe she's gone because we've never had an opportunity to say goodbye. We never got to come to the funeral. We never got to sing some hymns and listen to someone do it. That's why you have funerals. You know, her good mates. So it's not just them, it's older people. It was, you know, it was the cruelest thing we could have done we were very cruel to young people, but to older people as well.
Yeah, I feel there was no winners at all when you really step back and look at it
There
retrospectively.
were a few winners.
Oh, yeah, pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah. Jonathan Van Tam did pretty well out of it.
Yeah.
Deputy medical officer.
Yeah, I stand corrected. Your activism, which has been pretty forceful, robust, certainly very honest and true and unapologetic. How has that affected your... Before I ask the next question, how has it affected your relationships?
Quite profoundly. In a good way, in some ways, because the sound people are even more sound. And the ones that... But yeah, I lost quite a lot of friends, quite a lot of good friends, actually. Two particularly who I really loved. One over at the LGBTQ flag, who was gay. And I lost one over... What did I lose him over? Oh, I lost him over. He said I was insane because I would go to Antifa rallies and stuff, kind of covering myself up. And he said, I don't want to be around when you die. So he said, I can't be around your stressful life.
Why were you going to Antifa rallies dressed up?
You've got to know what they think.
So you was going in undercover?
Yeah. You've got to know what they think and what they care about and what they're talking about. Because otherwise you're just saying, I don't like you, you're from a different group.
That is commitment to the cause.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to do. I think you need to know the way, you should know how your enemy thinks.
Well, I would love an Antifa lunatic to sit opposite me and be genuinely honest about what their agenda is and what their ultimate goal is, but they never will.
You can play Antifa with yourself. It's really easy. What you do is you just take any subject and then argue emotionally about it. So it's really easy. You can do it on anything. You do anything. Black Lives Matter. I'll just argue it from an emotional point of view without any reference to data or any truth whatsoever, and just say, we need to look after black people. Yeah, well, okay. We do. We also need to look after lots of people who need looking after. Yeah, but it's black people that need looking after because of the British Empire and slavery. You can play the game with yourself all day. It's actually quite satisfying because you feel really good about yourself.
Might give that a go. It sounds very narcissistic and passive aggressive and covertly narcissistic and a bit fucked up. But I'll give it a go.
Get yourself a padded room and give it a go. It's good.
The pressure you've come under.
Yeah.
We laugh and joke. But it's been immense. I mean, the establishment have really come for you in quite the fashion. How has that affected your mental health? And be brutally honest.
The first few death threats are really impactful. So I can still remember my first death threat, which was, I'm going to unload a shotgun into this fucker's face, which was a comment on something. And I was like, what? I've got to call the police. You know, I hadn't had a death threat before. And then you start feeling squeezed by the whole thing. And what you do is you have to alter your routine. Because, you know, if you get a series of people saying they're going to do something to you, however much you think that, you know, it's just some keyboard warrior arsehole, there's some people aren't, you know, as we find out in various people that have been killed just recently. There have been people killed for things that they've said and done. So what happens is it's insidious. So it makes you low-level paranoid at the beginning. And then you start, because you're living in a sort of cortisol level of paranoia, you then start getting physical symptoms of anxiety, which are strange. So like my hand would start shaking when I went up to the front door, even to go outside. And then I was like, dick ass, maybe I've had too many Stellas or something. But no, it was like really palpable, and I didn't want to go near the front door. And I started getting more locks on the door and various things like that. And then worried about my kids as well. So then you start to, it's the slow process, and then you start to feel, I'll just do nothing. So you then find yourself going, I'll just stay in bed actually for a bit now. Or I'll wake up and I'll get the kids off school, then I'll just go and lie back in bed. And it's really low level. You start doing, I think it's signs of depression. It's sort of, you're developing kind of symptoms of depression. And then you get into things like I've never been a particularly, let's go on party kind of guy. But you start just not going out. And then you go, stop this. And then you kind of gather yourself back together. But after a while, I came to the conclusion that I couldn't live in London anymore. And I didn't want to live near... I mean, that was a mixture of things. But ultimately, I think you're asking about mental health. I think it has a very, very damaging effect on your entire body.
Was there ever a time where you didn't want to live at all?
Not during this. I had a very, very painful divorce, which hilariously was, until it ended quite recently, 10 years down the line, was the longest running family court case in the United Kingdom.
And this is Billy Piper.
Yeah. And in the early stages of that, some of the shit that went down in that, I thought, I can't go on. But no, not this. Because you know, my dad's always very sound about things like this. I did say to my dad during the early stages of divorce, I said, I can't fucking go on. I just can't deal with this. It's all these things that's being said and all these court things. And my dad turned around and went, I said, I just don't want to go on. I'll kill myself. He went, well, don't do that, darling. She'll be thrilled.
Don't do that, darling.
she'll be thrilled. That's what he said. So so I kind of take that attitude into it, which is I know that what their mission is to destabilise you, upset you, and fuck with your head. So you just have to go, well, I have to make my head stronger. Yeah, I was walking the dogs the other day, and I've got 5 dogs, and we were walking along, and this guy's walking in the other direction with his dog on a lead, right? And he's looking at the ground. His whole body language is really sad, and he just looks like an unhappy, defeated guy. And my dog's like, yeah, well, dog, and they're not. They run over and they want to say hello. And this guy just went, fuck him, and I fucking put your fucking dog on a fucking lead. And I was like, whoa. And I was thinking, what is he going through?
Yeah.
You know?
I've had that.
And there's a lot of things that people are going through. So I wouldn't say that anything that I've gone through, other than it being slightly unique to the fact that it's about a certain level of public persecution, is no different from whatever that dude's going through. Or whatever that person who decides to cut you up in the car pointlessly on your way down the motorway. So I think none of us talk nearly enough. I mean, it's nice that the British have this veneer of civility and it's like, stiff upper lip and all that. But I don't think people talk nearly enough about how they feel mentally. And there's certainly men feel like, you know, can't say anything, got to be like that, don't we? But I'm like, actually, I think you can be strong. You can, a bloke who tells me how he feels, I always go, I have respect. I don't turn around and go pussy.
No.
I go respect.
I actually think one of my strongest traits is my commitment to vulnerability. If you're feeling something, roll with it. Even if that's laughing, but if you're feeling sad and you feel like you want to cry and, like, you know, I've probably said this before, but, you know, my nan died 15 years ago. Once a month, I will still burst into tears, and I won't sit there and think, come on, it was 15 years ago, fight this, Liam. It's like, I'm leaning into this because it clearly needs to be out of my system. So, yeah, if I totally agree with you. If you're feeling sad, emotional, vulnerable, just say it. And you'll be amazed how many people will join you on that journey as well. And they probably think, thank God someone's actually led the way here.
Yeah, and as you say, there's a reason why prisons are mostly full of men, you know, because when men bottle stuff up, it comes out in a different way, doesn't it?
Aggression.
Yeah, and there's a reason why most family courts are filled up with vexatious women trying to steal children off men, because their power is emotional. And they will stop. They destroy men in different ways. Like, men are the major perpetrators of domestic violence, and women are the major perpetrators of the destruction of families and divorce and stuff like that. So everyone has got the pain in them, and you want. But I would never see myself as a special case, because I don't think it is a special case. I think I know people who've fought cancer and smiled all the way through it. And I know people that have come back from the deepest despair, you know, and I have huge respect for that. But I do think that in my situation, because it was so relentless and is, you know, I mean, it's still pretty relentless, it's the adrenaline. It's living on that sort of juice, and that sort of makes you like that. But now I'm in a sort of more
calmer.
Well, I'm not calmer, because the minute I was on the phone to Freddie's, Lizzie was on the phone to Freddie's Flowers because she's calm. The minute I turned around, I said, "You tell him I'll fucking kill him," and she's like, "Shut the door." You know, so I'll still have one of those.
Still got that anger in you.
Yeah, but I do need time out from cortisol, adrenaline, fear of
dopamine.
Yeah, dopamine as well, actually. So it is important for me. So I just thought, when I'd had my third machete stabbing on the road where I used to live, third machete incident, I just thought, I'm out of here, man. I'm leaving. I'm not living in this dump anymore.
And nobody can blame you. You used the word fear. Are you scared?
Well, I had this chat with Tommy. I don't think so. I'm come to the conclusion, maybe I am, but I stop it with impulsivity and action. So I think back to when the last time I had a physical fight with somebody, for example. There wasn't a lot of winding up, and then someone threw a punch. It was over very quickly, and it was frenzied, and then it was done. You know, and so was I scared, or was I just? Did I act correctly? You know, to sort my own problem out. I think that I've noticed. I think anxiety and fear are two separate things. I'm not scared of dying. Like, I'm not scared of some jihadist arse coming into my house and killing me, because I will give as good as I get. And my house is very, very well stocked in many, many positions. They've got good security, but, you know, they'd have to send quite a large number of jihadists, and a few of them wouldn't be making it home. They'd be off to see the virgins as well. So I'm not scared of dying. I'm not scared of that. And I don't think you should be, because I don't want to be bullied into, I'd rather live, you know, I wrote a song, and it's, you know, it's the old adage, I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees. I'm not going to live on my knees.
What is your driving force? You come from very good stock, and so I bring it back to sort of towards the beginning of this interview. You come from very good stock, but yet you've dedicated your activism to fighting for the working class and the forgotten people. Now, I think that's admirable, and I'd love to know where that motivation come from and just why.
I think that there's this weird thing about, you know, kind of poshy type people. I mean, I'm only a few generations away, as my grandmother on my dad's side used to point out, that her grandfather, well, no, actually, my dad's grandfather was a Jersey tobacconist. That's what she, you know, so she'd say it very snobbily.
Peasant.
Yeah, so only a few generations away from that. But I think there's something about posh people and working class people that is very similar, which are, you know, I love history and I love reading about battles and all of that sort of stuff. And, you know, it was these scared young men from the rich class and the poor class who were sent off to die vaingloriously for our country. And it was the middle classes, you know, who often benefit from a lot of these situations. It's the middle class who are jealous and greedy, and they want something better than their next door neighbour, and they want to, you know, they're looking to go, they want to move from Kentish Town to Islington, you know, and then they want to move from Camden to Primrose Hill, you know, those fuckers who have, you know, drinks parties and talk about how, you know, how utterly, you know, naive and stupid these people
Put an olive in their vodka.
These fuckers. I like a twist of lemon in my vodka. That's all right. But anyway, and so I think that the elite class is not posh. Whereas also when I got chucked into this position, the first thing I did was get in a car and drive around England and go and meet lots of people. Because I thought I've got to work out what everyone cares about and just check if it's the same stuff that I care about. Fortunately, most of it was. But you sit in a, and I hated this idea of white privilege as well. It really pissed me off that, you know, you can rape as many girls as you want, but we're not, but if we criticise you, we're being Islamophobic. But, you know, if you just happen to be white, you're white privilege. So that annoyed me. And I thought, and I was, you know, finding out about the fact that white working class kids do not have good life outcomes. And actually, you know, especially Christian kids, Christians in the whole world now is study is just revealing that it's the most persecuted religion on earth, you know, and yet we're all meant to feel really bad about it. And I thought to myself, just on a purely logical level, having spent a lot of time with these people, especially communities that had had their hearts ripped out of them, you know, by the mining industry, the steel industry, whatever it was, and you'd go in and I'd ask stupid posh questions in little dusty council rooms with the sun coming through cheap curtains. And I'd say, well, why can't you like open up that industry again? And your high street is just, there's nothing on it. It's just dead. And it's just kids smoking weed on BMXs going up and down. And, you know, give these kids some jobs. There's no skills here, man. The skills are gone. They left. If there was any mining skill here, it's now in China. You know, these kids have nothing. And no one ever speaks for them. And then, you know, and as we've seen with what's happened with the, you know, these like Islamic gangs, you've seen how these people get treated. So I thought, okay, well, if you're going to speak for somebody, you might as well speak for the only people that no one else speaks for. Never have a voice. Whenever there's a war, they're expected to die, massively overrepresented in their community. In America, it's white working class kids who come back in coffins, 75% higher than the representation than they are in the population. You know, these people are dying for the country that they believe in. That country treats them like shit. And that makes me fucking angry. So it's just to go, why is this constituency of people ignored and taken advantage of and treated like shit? Especially, you know, that Emily Thornberry white van man. You know, that's his fucking livelihood. That's his whole fucking life, you bitch. While you sit there snootily in Parliament going, look. That's his fucking life. You work for that. And so what if he loves his football team? More of us should. That's another reason why I live where I live. Every fucker's got a flagpole. You know? And I won't be putting up a fucking pride flag on it in Pride Month either, I tell you that. Actually, I might, and then burn the fucker from the flagpole.
I was going to say, don't miss an opportunity.
I bought two, and I bought an extra large one this time, but I got so bored of it at the end. Yeah, so that's it. It's like, I was going to join the army when I was at school because I was pretty naughty at school, as you can imagine, got in a lot of trouble at school. And one of the only people who really influenced me was a Welsh Sergeant Major who had refused to put his men on one of the ships that got blown up in the Falklands War, and he therefore had been like hoofed out of the army and he'd been put in Harrow School's army. And he really got me back on sort of target to achieve something. And I spent a lot of the last couple of years of my school years on army bases with squaddies, and they're fucking funny people. You know, that they have some of the best senses of humour you'll ever come across.
They've got to have a sense of humour.
Yeah. So I just think, you know, I suppose I'm as bad as other people. It's like, this is my tribe. This is my people. I'm 2 2-3 generations from living above a Jersey tobacco shop, and we're all the same to me. We're Englishmen, and I'm not ashamed to say it.
From a cultural standpoint, this is where I think the country is lacking. More men standing together, united. Unity is our strength. I totally agree with that. And if we all stand together, we don't have to necessarily agree on every single last point, but if everyone's moral compass is in check and facing in the right direction, and we rise together in a professional capacity, but with some enthusiasm,
Pride,
enthusiasm, a voice, some gusto, then maybe more of us will be heard and more of us will join the cultural movement, and the important people that can make the change will actually listen to the people and think, shit, we need to be shifting direction here because the country's fucked.
Yeah, they've completely misread the mood of the country.
Cool.
And also, it's the other thing I was thinking about when you were asking was, I spent a lot of time on film sets, and you spend time with very, very highly skilled craftsmen and women. You know, really, best set builders, best sparks, best chippies, really. And I always used to get on better with them than I did with the actors because they're more fun, to the point where I moved out of the Actors Hotel, where it's 14 quid for a glass of fucking wine, into the Holiday Inn where they chuck the crew. And I went to live with the crew because I had more time, a better time with them than I did with the sort of, so, did you read the episode 2? Do you think that the narrative arc is improving with each episode? I'm just like,
Fuck off, I'm going to Wetherspoons.
Yes, fuck off. I don't want a 14 pound glass of wine unless you're paying for it, and then I'm leaving.
Yeah.
So there was that. I think that they know, and I think Southport was very indicative of this. There is a fighting lion in every Englishman. There is. And that's, that's, you can be black, white, yellow, red, yellow, or blue. There is a lion. There's people who we believe in our fucking country. And that identity is being fragmented by this constant diversity is our strength, diversity is our strength. You're all racist if you say that, It's totally fine to go, I fucking love my country. I love it. I honour the people who died needlessly often for it. I love the fact that men used to, some of the war poetry written by women is so beautiful. And
I bet that pulls on the heartstrings.
It really does. They would say things, how village signs would become overgrown because some dude, some man that no one ever gave a fucking round of applause to ever would go out there in the spring and summer and he would just nicely cut round that sign so you'd know that you're entering whatever village it was. These things. And I'm proud of all of that. And I'm actually proud of the fact that when England exported itself around the world, it did it with 200,000 people. That's what it did. And the sun never set on the English Empire. And yes, we did. There were things that weren't great about it. But there were 200,000 people who took our value system out to the world. And our value system was equality under the law, the British legal system, common law system, which is a fucking good legal system. We took infrastructure across the subcontinent and we took our Christian values and we took them out there. And then, to top it all off, we ended, prior to that, we ended slavery. Round of fucking applause, thanks very much.
What thanks do we get for that?
Nothing. We get told that we're,
that we owe money.
Yeah, fuck you and your reparations. Give me some reparations, Caesar Augustus.
Yeah, I tell you what, we won't go down the David Lammy route because that's a whole podcast in itself. But what a piece of shit!
Well, this is the other depressing thing. For the shit that they give people like me, that man
is racist.
He's a monstrous racist.
He hates us, and it's so Ray Charles could see that he's a racist.
But it's okay to be racist if you're black in the modern world. You get a free pass to be racist, and I'm just like, you know what? We don't like racism in this country, and we don't tolerate it, and that's what I thought I was calling out on Question Time. And I think that's what I'm trying to point out all the time.
Actually, all the things you've been accused of, we don't like racism, we don't like misogyny, we don't like homophobia. Period. So but that's what they do. They'll accuse you of the things that you like the least because they know they're going to trigger you.
Well, it's exactly accuse them of the thing you are guilty of.
It's a narcissistic trait of projection as well.
Yeah, and it's classic Goebbels and it's classic leftism and but it's fine. I'm pretty secure in my knowledge. I was talking to Lizzie about this the other day. I'm like, because someone's decided to make a big statement by not coming to our wedding because of my views on Islam.
Sadiq Khan?
Sorry, Sadiq. We'll move the day.
Wedding's off.
We'll move the day. We'll hold it in the East London Mosque. She can go in another door. Maybe we'll stick a bin bag on her.
Hold it in Saudi.
But and I was a bit upset about this because I thought, why would you do that on someone's wedding day? You know, because you get an opportunity when someone can't come, they put regrets and they give a reason most of the time. Matt Hayes, my favourite fisherman and now bestie mate now. His one's like, it was literally the first week of the salmon season. I can't come. It was like long message. So sorry, can't come. But please, can you come out on these dates and we'll take you fishing and we'll go out. Really loving. But this person decided just to go regrets, no reason.
Yeah, because what he meant was no regrets.
Yeah, that attitude. If we aren't allowed to have that attitude, to be proud of our country and to be proud of the achievements, and if we don't come together and defend it, we've got nothing to defend. I was listening in the car. Tradition is the solution to problems that have arisen in the past. So you create a tradition to solve the problem, and the tradition is patriotic pride in your country and all that sort of stuff to deter war. To stop this shit happening so you can bring good to the world. And we got to stop looking at this country like it's in some way a bad place. I think it's a fucking amazing place. And I'm really proud of it. I think parts of it now are dead, certainly, and are dying.
It certainly used to be better. And if we could bring it back to how it used to be, I mean, people will jump on this. Oh, well, back in when people was wearing Dr. Martin boots and all the rest of it, it's like, no, that's not what we mean. We mean when people would just get on harmoniously without all the incorrect slurs and tags and one-upmanship and conflict. Yeah. We used to get on a hell of a lot better when things were...
manners mattered.
Manners mattered, and speech was actually far more free.
Because the left fought for it too, so that their stupid ideas could get listened to, which we totally tolerated.
I actually find some of the leftist rhetoric, I mean, so outlandish, and I disagree with it wholeheartedly, but I find it so amusing and entertaining sometimes. I think I would never, ever want to suppress your speech. Exactly. You're doing a great job of completely embarrassing yourself.
Entertaining me.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. It's one of the key weapons in our response to all this shit is comedy, because they're allergic to it. If you don't take them seriously enough, they get very, 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 very upset. It's one of the best weapons there is. Destroy them with comedy.
That will explain why they don't like me a great deal, because I don't take a great deal serious. Once you've had a bit of a tough old gig and you've seen a few things that you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy, you tend to sort of not sweat the small stuff. So I find most things funny, amusing, brush it off. Yeah, that's a you problem, not a me problem. Yeah, I can see why they don't like that. But now, Tommy, are you partly in support of Tommy, or are you fully in support of Tommy Robinson?
Fully and 100% in support of Tommy. Always have been.
And how did your relationship blossom?
He contacted me on WhatsApp. I don't know how he got my number. Must have been a few years ago now.
He gets everyone's number.
Yeah, he gets everyone's number. So he got my number and he's like, you know what he's like? Yeah, right, mate. He never writes a message. It's always like long voice note. And he was like, I went to go and be interviewed by him, I think. Yeah, he interviewed me.
Okay.
And I looked at him and I thought, I hadn't seen the vulnerable bit of him at all. And, obviously, I've been shoveled the same shit that every other fucker's been shoveled, which is a nasty racist bastard. But I'm smart enough to know that if the minute someone tells me someone is bad, the minute there's a mass movement of people telling me someone is bad, I know that they're usually one of the best people you'll ever meet in your life. It's a stock rule for me nowadays, because if they're making that much effort to make you dislike someone or think that they're evil, they're usually pretty sound. And I sat there and I just noticed the vulnerable part of him. And then I found that very endearing. And then I noticed that he's really fucking smart. Like mega brainy. And then I noticed that he's not even remotely any of the things. Well, I'd assumed that in a way, but I never noticed that he wasn't. But then I noticed that, and that's where it gets more complicated, is that I noticed that there are some people, because he's a very trusting guy as well. You know what I mean?
He's a bit too trusting.
Yeah. And I noticed that when I was sort of trying to...
It's because he's kind.
Yeah. And he's got a lot on. And if you've got a lot on and you're busy, you need to delegate and you've got shit to do. And then I noticed just a few times, I just noticed there was some people around him who I wasn't a huge fan of. And I thought, you know what? Out of all the people in this country who has the courage to stand up and has a really big following, has got the courage to stand up and say what needs to be said, it's him. No one else will do it. Farage is a fake like you wouldn't believe. There's no one that will do it. He'll do it, and he doesn't mind getting punched in the face for it. I thought this is a courageous man, and he doesn't have a malevolent bone in his body. So, and I'm really spending time on this person, and I'm judging them, and I'm seeing kindness and all of this stuff as well. Yeah, I'm 100% behind him, and I'm really looking forward to when he comes out of prison. But I'll never forget the way he's been treated, and the way that no one has stood up for him, represented him other than us lot online, and some people not online. Some people have used it for various things and all that.
Well, you've stood on stage with him. You've actually put your face beside him, which does come with its downsides.
I don't give a shit about the downsides. He's
me neither.
Yeah, fuck that. Also,
and fuck them.
Yeah, fuck them. Don't be a right-wing Piers Morgan.
There you go.
Stand just on the side of the stage, and the minute someone points to camera, just go. There's a lot of that. The number of people who have come to me and said, because obviously I have generous support and backing, financial backing, and the number of people like, can we do this? And really want to do this, especially now that reform is exploding. And I'm like, I only ever asked them one question. What do you think of Tommy Robinson? That's the only question I ever asked him. And then I can judge whether whatever's going to, the rest of the conversation based solely on that one question.
Because I think there's enough information out there now. There's enough detail about Tommy for people not to be so ignorant and just believe the tabloids. Because we know the tabloids hate anything to do with British traditions and cultures. And I think there's so much out there now. Now he's got his X page back, which is another thing I'll probably ask you in a little while when we wrap this up. But like now he's got his X page and he had his right to reply. You notice how the lies stopped overnight. It's not because you're going to get caught out. And surely the people are awake now and they're conscious to what's going on. And I don't think I think if people are still making excuses to despise Tommy, then they need to be looked into. It's like, well, what part of Islamic rape gangs are you for?
Yeah.
Because essentially that's the main thing he's done, and the main thing he's exposed, and the way they think and tick, and the radical leg of Islam, which we should all be clued up on because there's more and more of it coming into the UK.
Yeah, the UK is a hotbed of some of the most extremist radical Islam. But also, people need to do some reading into Islam generally and find out about it because, and Tommy obviously has done some reading into it and has written books about it. So he knows about it, and I've studied it enough to know exactly what the threat that Islam is to Britain, because Islam is a conquering philosophy. It's not, and it's a system of living. It's not necessarily just a religion. And once a country becomes Islamified, that's it, and that's why it spreads around the world. And I think Britain shouldn't be Islamified. The Islamification of Britain is.
I know you're very much.
I'm very much
that.
Like you either you can come here from a Muslim country, by all means, an extremist Muslim country, or a very fundamentalist Islamic country. You come here for sanctuary from that, but don't bring your shit with you. Don't bring your don't bring your thing when you come here and you leave your wife in your house, and if you ever let her out of the house, she's got to be covered in a bin bag and she's not allowed to speak to any people, not allowed to make any friends. Don't bring that shit to my country. It's not British. We don't want it. Fuck off. Go and live somewhere else. I genuinely believe it, and I'll say it to anyone, and I've got no problem. To the cultural Muslims who are just like, yeah, I'm a Muslim. They're not a Muslim. While they're having a Stella going, I'm a Muslim, and their girlfriend or wife puts some makeup on. These people are not.
I've been in a room with a Muslim friend years ago who, after a few glasses of wine and a £50 note hanging out of his nose, he then started talking about the Quran to me, and I said, newsflash, you're not a real traditional Muslim. I most certainly am. It's like, You've got a Western girlfriend, you're drinking red wine, and you're sniffing cocaine.
You got half a gallon of pub
This
dust
is
up your
like a
nose.
Monty Python sketch. And but yeah, it does create divide and problems because like I come from Crawley, so that's a multicultural. It's a London overspill.
Yeah.
And a lot of my friends I grew up with are Pakistani Muslims, but they were born and raised here years ago. They haven't just come onto the scene now with their cultural belief system. They're exactly the same as me, and they use the Quran as a buffet, and they take their little bits for a bit of spiritual comfort. And I find myself I have to explain to them from time to time, and they're worthy of it because they're friends. I'm not referring to you. It's the 7th century barbarians that are coming across that are disregarding our culture. That's the problem I've got.
Don't hate the individual Muslim, but Islam practiced correctly, I don't like.
Yeah, the ideology followed to the letter is something that we should all be concerned
I
with.
think we should all be concerned about it. But here's my thing. I don't think there's going to be any real change in this country. It'll be fascinating to see what happens when Tommy gets out. Because when he gets out, and none of these are just so angry that people fell for that reform Ponzi scheme bullshit, and that Tommy said...
Oh, I'm furious.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it from day one, and I was going, they're a bunch of cunts, they're liars, it's a Ponzi scheme, it's about that, and it's about grown-up table establishment bollocks, feed us a bit of, some fake red meat to the right.
We like a bit of hope, don't we, if that's all we've got?
But then, you put some thin-skinned narcissist in charge of it, like Farage, who did it, ironically, 3 hours after our first United Kingdom rally, when he thought, fuck, my constituency's back, and they're unhappy, I'll go and represent them. Not a single word for Tommy. He looks awkward, even asked the question. And, that second one when Tommy stood up and went, who are you going to vote for, Conservative reform? And they all went reform. And these people he had hope. I hope he comes out and I hope he goes, right. I'm going to get serious now. And I think his purpose in this country, he doesn't even know how important he's going to be.
A lot of people, particularly intellects, think Tommy Robinson has a greater purpose. I mean, his purpose is pretty impressive as it is, but a lot of people believe that if there's anybody that could possibly make an actual change, it's Tommy.
Yeah.
And I believe in him. And you do because you know him. And people that have just read about him, they won't really understand the magnitude of his mind. As you say, extremely intelligent, when you mix compassion, kindness and intelligence, and leadership, natural and bravery, wow, that is a hell of a concoction.
It is.
That's what we need.
It is, but it's a real reflection of the British, isn't it? That the only thing that gets in the way, Tommy would be taken very, very, very seriously if he sounded like me.
If he spoke like Douglas Murray or you, Tommy Robinson would be it'd be mainstream.
But the people who live in Islington who want to move to, up the road to wherever's more posh than Islington won't have it. The media class won't have it. It's also that thing about. The thing they hate about people like me and the thing that they hate about people like Tommy and people like that is that we don't really care what you think of us. I don't care what my enemy thinks of me. I don't want my enemy to think, well, he's a really nice guy. I want my enemy to think that I'm a threat to them. And the way that I want them to feel like I'm a threat to them is by being brave when dealing with them, which is like, fuck you. It doesn't work on me. You can do whatever you want. It doesn't work.
Now, what about jail? Now,
I reckon I'll end up in jail anyway.
Knowing Tommy for as long as I have, which is actually it was post the EDL day, so I never knew Tommy. I've known me and Tommy been friends about 10 years, and probably like you, when he first come on the scene and he contacted me, I've looked at him and I've read all these bad reports on him and all these hit pieces, and I thought, well, I'll do my own due diligence because I couldn't be friends with a genuine racist.
Yeah.
So I looked into him. Met him, realised it was all fucking propaganda, realised just how decent a human being he is. But I have seen over the years, the sabotage, the attacks, the lies, the fake news, even someone like Farage, a man in his position of responsibility, his sound bites travel. I've heard him fucking lie about him on LBC. That really,
on your own fucking side, on your own side,
unnecessary.
The only person you either say nothing because you're a pussy, or stand up and do what the people of this country expect an insurgent opposition party to do, which is say we believe in what people's right to free expression, and we believe in the right to an assumed good reputation as well. Don't fucking destroy people's reputation. No one looks back at your life, Nigel, in that way.
Yeah, no one
and
ever...
you've stabbed arsehole after arsehole in the back. Nigel Farage, to me, is woke as they come. He's so into free speech as long as it's his own.
Establishment.
He's totally establishment. He's been dead centre of every single time we have tried to take on the establishment. He has been dead centre or scuppered it himself. That's what you got to think about. And Tommy, all he's ever tried to do is get the truth out there. Now, can you criticise his methods? Can you criticise his past and his history? Yeah, of course you can. That's why we should never live in a world that's so puritanical that people can't have a past.
Yeah, the only people that could be taken notice of are the ones that are perfect. Well, newsflash.
Yeah, well, they're all fucking kids.
And they don't exist.
They're all doing really dodgy shit, paid for, and horrible. Anyway, I've been to these parties. I've been to establishment parties. I've been to parties where the most appalling things have happened. I've been to enough parties with enough members of the very, very acceptable British establishment to bury some people, and I could actually bury Farage if I wanted to, with one tweet.
Well, maybe let's watch 𝐬𝐫𝐫𝐸's, and we might have to have a part 2. But let me finish my long-winded question. So, where I've seen the establishment, bombardment, and basically, essentially now, my friend is sat in solitary confinement. So, I can see how they're coming for you. I wouldn't be surprised if you end up in jail. So the question is, do you expect to be jailed one day, and how would you deal with jail?
I do, unless there's a change in this country. I do think that they'll think up something to get me for. But it's also one of the reasons why I've gone silent for 3 months, because I've been writing. And yes, there are many copies, just so you know, just in case. And I've been writing because I want to be able to put it down exactly how I think and be free from the space. But I do expect them to do. But I tell you what, I have no faith at all in the impartiality or the uncorruptibility of the British judicial system. I have absolutely no faith in the impartiality or uncorruptibility of the British law enforcement system. Therefore, if a policeman turns up at my house or anything like that, I would never, ever answer the door, ever. I think we should have an Englishman's home as his castle rule in this country. And the threshold of a police being able to go into that house should be massive, because we don't have a First and Second Amendment. So we've got to have ways of protecting ourselves. I see the police, as I've said frequently, as my enemy. I've never been treated by the police since I started telling the hard truths that need to be heard. I've been treated pretty badly and like a proper enemy by these intimidating people. And I don't have any faith in the judicial system. And we see what happened in Southport, and we see the way that Labour people can punch people in the face when they're on the ground, and they can get 10-week suspended sentences. I think I see the police. I see us in a cold civil war at the moment. I see the police as an enemy. So I tweeted a few weeks ago or months ago, and everyone tried to get me done for it. I said, if the police come around to your house, greet them with an axe. I would... if the police came anywhere near my house...
Another one of Laurence Fox's famous tweets.
If anyone came...
Did you tweet that?
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
And they were like, you got to get them that since I said, no, I'm not saying greet them with an axe and hit them with it. I'm just saying that's the threshold of my property. And if you're coming here for any other reason other than the fact that I've committed a crime, and nowadays you don't know what a fucking crime is, because we've got non-crimes, we've got crimes of speech, we've got some really dreadful styles of crimes.
Non-crime, hate crime.
Yeah. It's like I would rather fight it out with them on my own doorstep than I would go to jail.
Did you get paid a visit by saying you're going to greet them with an axe?
No, surprisingly not.
That does surprise me.
Yeah.
I thought they would have jumped at the chance.
Yeah, they were. Well, they do want to jump at the chance. The Tommy Robinson attack is only going to work on Tommy Robinson. It's not going to work on me. They'll try and get me on something else. I'm sure they'll try and get me on... There's a million things that they can do to destroy you. You know, they can get you financially. They can get you... There's a million things people can do to ruin your life. They don't need to put you in jail.
Do you think you'd survive in jail, though?
I don't know. I've never been in jail.
No.
But I think I would...
Is it a daunting thought?
Well, it's like you... I hate to be a bit wanky about it, but, you know, do you want to live in a jail in your head instead?
That is... Do you know what you've said there? Do you want to live in a jail in your head instead? It's a good opportunity for me to say that although Tommy is now, by the time this goes out, It'll be 4.5 months in solitary confinement. Tommy has been in solitary for about 2 years, 4.5 months, because the build-up to him being arrested, knowing the treatment that he was going to receive, he was in jail in his own mind. I was back and forth to Spain making sure that keeping his head above sea level, because he knew what was coming, but he chose to publish the truth as opposed to be silenced. That's how much it meant to him. He was prepared to sacrifice his freedom and his sanity, but his prison sentence started there about 2 years ago, and he's now right in the midst of it. It's important to mention that.
I think that is really important.
The punishment is the process.
The process of punishment, exactly. And but it's also worth putting some optimism into that, which is that there are amazing freedoms that come with not being afraid of them, and they're really worth it, because you go, you don't frighten me at all. Literally. And
take the power away. And
you sort of go, well, what you do ask yourself, what would frighten me? I think anyone doing anything to my kids that would create an uncontrollable fear in me. Weirdly, and obviously my missus, it would just create rage. I would just not be able to, and if anyone did anything to my dogs or my family or my loved ones, but the rest of it is like, bring it fucking on. I'm a bit spiritual about this sort of thing, which is like, we're bodies, we're born, we live, we decay, we die. It happens.
Any regrets now that you're deep into in the trenches?
Yeah, I mean, on one day I'll wake up and I'll go, why didn't I just shut my fucking mouth, and just get paid?
And not only that, it's good to remember that it's not as if you didn't stand a chance. Like, you was a good actor.
Yeah, I was doing pretty well. I was making a lot of money.
Yeah.
So, but you know what? The most unhappy I've ever been in my life was when I was at my richest. So goes to show. And that's true of a lot of people I know. There's a trap with money. You start getting paid more money, so you start expanding the size of your life to fit the amount of money you get paid. And then once your life is now expanded to the fact that you've got a bigger life with a more expensive mortgage and this and that, you then have to start doing things you don't want to do to keep the standard of life going, which is why it's so despicable what Emily Thornberry did about the guy with the white van, because that's his fucking life, right? And it didn't make me happy pursuing money, and it didn't make me happy pursuing like fame in a showbizy type way and respect from other actors. You know what I miss the most, and the thing I regret the most, is once you switch off that part of your brain to do because you have to be quite resilient to do what I have been doing, because you take a lot of knocks. Last year was a pretty fucking hard year. It's like minuscule compared to what Tommy's been through. But for me, as a beginner, it was a pretty tough year, I found. And what happens is you turn off a lot of your creativity. And I was creative. I used to write albums. I wrote a lot. I acted a lot. I'm a creative. And that I'm really fighting, and actually with Lizzie, because she loves me. She's saying, you've got to get that back, babe. Which is what I'm doing now.
Yeah,
which is
some soul work.
Which is why I've got the 3 months off to finish this book, and I think I'd be all right in prison. I think most people, people get through prison, don't they? My prison officer friend told me that the worst time in prison is actually for the people who haven't been assigned a sort of actual prison yet, when they're brand new and they've just realised that they're going to be spending a quite substantial time in prison, and they're put on a certain wing. And he says the shit people do in that situation, where they come to terms with the fact that they're now incarcerated. Well,
if you ever get banged up, I'll come and visit you.
You will.
What I'm going to say as a final note is I'm going to preempt. I'd love you to come back for a part 2, maybe on something topic specific. In a year's time, we can see how Trump's evolved, the further implosion of reform, how the UK is going, what you're doing with your life now, the cultural movement, Tommy's return, how the whole team come back together. There'll be lots to discuss. So I'm going to put that in there now. And before I shake your hand and thank you for coming on and tell you how much I've enjoyed this conversation, is there anything that you want to end this on? Any message of hope or faith or whatever you want to say to the audience?
Yeah, I think people should be very wary of identity groups about and identity rights, turning around and talking about their rights, you know, the rights of one identity group over another identity group. We're all human beings. We're all created equal in the eyes of God. Whether we all have the same things or not, we're all created equal. And we should remember that in how we treat each other. Don't form a toxic little tribe to try and make yourself feel like you've got some more mates. Be yourself, and love people for who they are. Every single human life is sacred, man. Every single one.
Laurence, I've thoroughly enjoyed your company. I really appreciate you coming on, brother.
God bless you.
Yeah, good health, mate.
Thank you.